Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all present here for today's in tandem session. Our focus this time is on the South Indian region, a space that is not only geographical distinctive but also cultural profound. South India, with its rich linguistic diversity, classical traditions, folklore, and contemporary leadership practices, stands as a significant site for both regional and transnational dialogues. The region's texts, translations, and narratives carry the imprint of history, identity, and lived experiences, making it an important area of study in Indian writing and cultural discourse. It is within such layered complexities that we situate today's session. So it's now my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Nivea Thomas K. Dr. Nivea Thomas K serves as an assistant professor in the Department of English and Cultural Studies at Christ University, Bangalore. She pursued her MPhil in English and a PhD in Translation Studies from the University of Hyderabad. And in 2024, she was awarded the President Charles Wallace India Trust Visiting Fellowship at King's College, London. Her areas of expertise span translation studies, folklore, ethnography, Dalit studies, and Indian literature. With her academic rigor and research depth, she brings to this session a wealth of insight into the South Indian cultural and literary landscape. With great enthusiasm, let us now invite Dr. Nivea Thomas K to deliver the keynote address on the theme South Indian region.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Queen's Mary College, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And special thanks to Dr. Joshua for recommending my name. I'm so happy that the research club in tandem is undertaking these kinds of initiatives. Uh,
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இந்த இடத்துக்கு போகணும்.
okay, I'll share the screen.
A request from the members. Vaishu, who is Vaishu? I think, can you just mute your phone? Yes, thank you. Can you, yes? Could you please mute your microphone?
Okay. Can you see the PPT?
Yes. Your PPT is visible.
Okay. 1 second. Is it moving?
Yes, it is moving.
Okay.
Yes, it is moving.
Okay. Yes. So I assume that my audience is BA and MA students. So I'm not sure whether if you are exposed to translation studies as a discipline or as a research engagement. So as you see, the topic is very vast: translation in South India. So I won't be able to cover all the aspects of translation in South India, but my purpose will be to just give you an orientation about some of the translation practices in South India. So I've only selected a few practices from which you can look at how you can view translation as a cultural practice. Okay. Yeah. So I think if you take India as a country, it is definitely a multilingual country, and all our engagements are multilingual in nature. Same goes with the region of South India. It has great linguistic diversity. You know that there are major Dravidian languages like Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, along with languages like Kodava, Konkani, Urdu, tribal languages like Toda, Kota, Kurumba, Irula. So we have huge linguistic diversity and heritage. And in this kind of multilingual setting, we have to look at translation from an entirely different perspective. For example, in the West, I think if you look at the term called translation, it has different connotation. So translation means carrying across. Something is translated from one language into another. But if you look at our Indian context, we have terms like Anuvad, Vivartanam, Morimatam. So we have lots of regional terms in translation. So if you look at these terms in translation, these terms do not imply that translation is something like transfer of meanings from one language into another. In fact, anuvad can be translated, or the meaning of anuvad is speaking after, which means that something is happening after something. So it is from this perspective that we have to look at translation in the Indian context. Now, G.N. Devi, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this scholar called G.N. Devi. So, G.N. Devi has introduced a term to indicate the process of translation in the Indian context. So, he has said that India already has a translating consciousness, because India is a multilingual country, and it has an inherent translating consciousness. So if you look at the earlier Sanskrit plays and all, Sanskrit was a dominant language in northern India. So if you look at the Sanskrit plays, you will find that there are characters who belong to different gender, different caste, speaking different languages within the same play. So it implies that being bilingual or multilingual is not something new to us for our context. It is already inherent in our context. Even if you look at your everyday activities, you will find that sometimes you will be speaking in Tamil, sometimes in English. So all this code switching, and sometimes you mix two words. So for us, this is not at all a new phenomenon, because we live in a multilingual society. So first point that you have to take as a research community here is India has an inherent translating consciousness. This is something within us. So I'll just give you a brief overview of some of the historical practices. So even in the Sangam period, so if you look at translation as a practice, it had existed long before the development of the institution of, or the disciplinization of, translation. So even in the Sangam period, you can find interactions with Sanskrit and Prakrit languages. And when it comes to Bhakti movement, there was vernacular devotional poetry. And during that time also, these poetry were converted into or adapted into different languages. And even if you look at the temples and courts, again, you will find that the poets, scholars, and if you look at the performances that were going on there, they all had this multilingual aspect. Now, about colonial encounters, this is also very important when it comes to translation, because when European missionaries came to India, they translated Bible. I think all of you know these, at least in the history books, you know that Bible was translated into different languages across India. So this was a prominent phenomenon in South India. And in the missionaries translation, what happened was some of the translators were so experts. One example is Benjamin Bailey in the context of Kerala. So Bible was translated into Malayalam, and Benjamin Bailey even contributed to a great extent. It even resulted in the creation of a dictionary, English to Malayalam dictionary, and these kinds of practices will uh, make us understand how certain languages get standardized, how it shapes the process of standardization. And English education, I think definitely that it is used, or you can look at translation as a tool of power when it comes to English education, because so many writers had access to English education during the time of colonization, and they experimented with the language and form in uh, diverse ways. And it was that point of time English became a framework. It became a predominant framework to understand or to access knowledge systems. So that way, even if you look at your own college or other engagements, English is used as a dominant framework to access language. So it all started from the colonial time period. So again, you can look at it from a translation point of view. How power is inherent in the process of translation. Translation is not at all an innocent activity. Definitely, there is some kind of power play or power dynamics involved in the process of translation. Now, if you look at literary translation, Ramayana and Mahabharata were retold in South Indian languages. So, in the PPT, I have used the word retold. But if you look at the scholar A.K. Ramanujan's point of view, he is against the use of the term retold. Instead, he suggests that we should use the term tellings instead of retellings, because when we use the word retellings we are already assuming the fact that there is already an original version, there is a primary version and all other versions are its derivatives. So he deliberately avoids the term retellings and he suggests to use the term tellings. So tellings does not assume any original version or any previous version, because if you look at the oral traditions in India, we we cannot historicize these oral narratives. You know, when was this narrative produced? Because it was produced in the oral tradition, so we cannot historicize it. Because of this reason, we cannot say this came first and this came last. And modern writers like U.R. Anandamurthy, Bashir, Perumal Murugan, I'm sure that these are some of the famous writers, and I'm sure that you might have heard these names. So even these writers were accessible in English through translation. So translation happened across Indian languages, and translators acted as cultural mediators in this regard. So we would not have accessed many great Indian or regional works if we had not read it in translation. And you should also understand that Sahitya Academy, Translation Mission, all these institutions and organizations are also promoting translations to a great extent. So I think you should, as a college, you should visit this National Translation Mission in Mysore. It would be a good trip, as well as, you know, they will make you understand. They will give you a session on what are the kind of activities taking place in National Translation Mission. And right now there are so many so many textbooks that are undergoing translation into regional languages. And Sahitya Academy also is taking these activities very seriously. We have a Sahitya Academy Translator Award. So that itself is a great recognition for Indian translators. And they have schemes like Navodaya schemes just to promote the regional translations. So this is just to give you an overview of what are the kind of activities that we undertake in the field of translation. And when it comes to religious and philosophical traditions, so I'm mentioning it briefly because translation is not just limited to the literary domain. In fact, you can find the movie remakes, you can find signages when you signboards or signages when you travel in a city. So there are so many nuances and intricacies added to the field of translation. So when it comes to religious and philosophical traditions, Tirukural is, I'm sure that you are familiar with this text, and Tirukural was translated into Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, and English. And Jain Buddhist texts were also circulated widely, and oral texts were also in circulation. Now, when it comes to oral texts, there is an interesting phenomenon called transcription. Because whenever we think of translation, we think about translating from one text into another or from one language into another. But transcription is, you know, you are writing down something which was in oral tradition. So transcription is also a kind of translation. So here I'm going to show you one example. This is an important text, Aidihimala, which was published in 1909 in Malayalam. So Aidihimala means garland of legends. It can be roughly translated as the garland of legends. So this author, Kottarathil Shankuni, collected and compiled legends of Kerala. And there are 126 legends documented in this book, and it appeared in 8 volumes in Bhasha Poshini magazine. So this can be regarded as a modernist mission. So how is translation contributing to a nation building enterprise? That is one important point that we can think about in this regard. Because if you look at Tagore and other famous writers, all these writers were collecting folk tales across India. So these kinds of practices were found in South India also. So one example is this one. The laws, myths, and legends of Kerala were collected from many regions across Kerala and they were compiled into a book called Aidihimala. So, what happened was when now how it becomes a nationalist enterprise is one question, because why were these writers collecting these folk tales and why were they transcribing them? Because they wanted to reinvent a tradition, they wanted to showcase a unique past. When the colonial activities were going on, they had to counterbalance the effect of colonialism. So for that, they were trying to portray or reinvent a tradition. I think some of the terms would be a little heavy for you, but I'm just exposing you to new kinds of practices and terminologies so that in future this would be helpful. These kinds of engagements would be helpful. So this is nationalist enterprise that way. Secondly, these English educated writers, when they transcribed these folklore into a written text, what happened was they experimented with new forms and genres because they were exposed to English magazines, journals, and also they imitated their writing style. New genres were introduced. For example, prose narrative. Earlier, we did not have something called prose narrative. So, prose narrative was a new addition. After getting exposed to English journals, magazine, and English education, these writers introduced new forms of writing. And in a prose narrative, you will find that when a folk tale is transcribed into a written text, what happens is the text becomes fixed and stable. In the oral tradition, there is more flexibility, more fluidity, it is more dynamic in nature. But when it comes to written tradition, the text becomes fixed and it will have a very definitive beginning, definitive ending. It has a well recognizable structure. So these are some of the formal or structural changes that happen to a text when a text is transcribed. Okay, so that is why transcription is also a process of translation. Now, this is just to introduce you to other kinds of activities that are going on in the field of translation. Uh, I don't know how many of you have at least seen these anthologies or at least know that these kinds of anthologies are out. So, one is Oxford Indian Anthology of Malayalam Dalit Writing, Oxford Indian Anthology of Tamil Dalit Writing, Oxford Indian Anthology of Telugu Dalit Writing. So these are some of the recent anthologies. There are several works, several regional Dalit writings which are translated into English now. So one question you might ask is, why are these works getting translated into English? Because if you look at English as a language, English is unfamiliar with the notion of caste. So, in the Western countries, you will not hear any caste issues. They only talk about race issues. So, English is unfamiliar, completely unfamiliar with the notion of caste. Then, why Dalit writers are choosing to write in English? So, one way to look at it is because English has more accessibility. You can reach to a wider audience when you write in English. And in that way, English is empowering the Dalit writers. And another example is this is one quote by a Gujarati Dalit writer. So, Neerav Patel, Gujarati Dalit writer, says that I will choose English over my mother tongue. So rather than writing in standard Gujarati, he would prefer to write in English because he feels more distanced from standard Gujarati than English. So there are so many reasons why these writers are choosing to translate these regional Dalit writings into English. So you have to understand from the research point of view what are the reasons, rationale behind choosing a particular language for translation. So I thought of showing you one example. This is a small poem. I'm just showing you 2-3 lines. The poem is longer than this one. So this is a poem Water by Challapalli Swaruparani. Again, this was earlier written in Telugu language and it was translated by Uma Bruguman. It knows generations old strife between the village and the Vada. It knows that untouchability never disappears. So here you find that there is a word called Vada between the village and the Vada. So Vada is a regional term, and why is a regional term included in this poem as it is? Why is it retained? So if you read this poem, there are other words as well. For example, there are so many historical figures who have caste specific names and terms like panjamas. All these terms are retained. So one logic behind retaining these terms is um, these terms carry cultural weight. So you cannot erase that cultural weight. You should not erase that cultural connotation and weight. That is why these kinds of terms are retained by the Dalit writers. And you will find that um, um, can anyone add any other point? Can you think of any other point? Okay. See, it is very difficult to articulate Dalit experience. So, if you're changing the regional terms or the terms which are very, very caste specific, cultural specific, you cannot articulate the Dalit experience fully. So, that is one reason why these kinds of terms are retained. And in terms of other activities in film and popular culture, you can find how translation plays a huge role. You know that so many movies are getting dubbed, and recently also you might have watched a lot of dubbed movies, and there are so many remakes also happening. So Manichitratadu is one movie which was remade into multiple languages. It was remade into Tamil called Chandramukhi. In Kannada also, I think I forgot the title, but in Tamil it is Chandramukhi. So it is very, very different from the Malayalam version because it was a Rajnikant starred version. So here you will understand that remake is also a translation, and here some of the factors that played a huge role in transforming the text is definitely the stardom of Rajnikant. Because when you're writing a script for a Rajnikant movie, it should follow the star ingredients of Rajnikant. So that is one important thing. So this also plays a huge role in translation. Another one is I don't know if you have heard this song. This is called South Anthem, Namma Stories. So it features all the major South Indian languages, the dominant languages, Malayalam, Tamil, Kannada, Telugu. So you can listen to this song in different versions. So 4 versions of this song are, compiled. Not versions. This song is a compilation of all these different languages. So here there is a reference to parota and beef because it is regarded as, in the popular imagination, it is regarded as the staple diet of Malayalis, parota and beef. It is very intimately connected to the Kerala culture. But in this song, if you look at the subtitle, this beef part, parota and beef, is completely removed from the subtitle and is indicated as BDF. Now, BDF means beef dry fry. That is the short form of BDF. Why they have modified parota and beef into BDF is definitely because beef is a highly sensitive issue and concern for many groups of people. So in India, beef is a huge all the issues and concerns related to the uh, aspect of beef. It has a lot of religious connotations, and religious sentiments also would be affected. So they deliberately, avoided the term parota and beef. So this is just one example. So here you will find that the censor boards, the translation is also acting as a censor board in this kind of uh, domains. So, and you can see that the text is getting transformed along these lines. And this is just a most recent example, AI translation tools and regional languages. So this appeared in July 18, 2025. Karnataka government writes to Meta on incorrect auto translations. So what happened was the chief minister's office sent out a condolence message, but the message appeared on Facebook and other platforms as the chief minister died. This is how the message was circulated. So that how this message was very misleading. So sometimes it can be very dangerous. That is why Karnataka government writes to Meta on incorrect auto translations, and later Meta apologizes to Karnataka government for this kind of mistake. So this is just to make you understand the status of AI translations tools and its application to regional languages. Maybe in terms of English, you will find that you might have been regularly using AI chatbots and tools, and you know that now it is becoming very advanced. But when it comes to regional languages, are they adequate enough? How much have we reached? That is also one thing to look at. And this slide also implies that translation is an everyday thing for us. Every day we are dealing with some or the other aspect of translation. So this is the concluding slide. So translation as a continuity. So translation is not something which happened, continued for some time, then there is an end, then a new period emerges. No, it is an ongoing activity, and there is always a dialogue between the past and the present. So if you look at any text, you will understand that a translated text, you will understand that the translated text is an independent text. At the same time, it is a dependent text. It is interdependent, or it is a derived text from the original language or the previous language. So, translation is an ongoing activity, and translators function as agents of change. So, I told you already that how translators are acting as mediators, cultural mediators. So, that way, a lot of changes and activities are happening due to the involvement of translators. And voices from the margins are also brought to the forefront by the translators. So, one example is the Dalit text in translation that I showed you. All these texts were pushed to the margins before, but now they are coming to the center because translators are definitely pushing these marginalized work to the center through their constant engagement. Otherwise, we will not hear these voices, but these voices are now brought to the forefront. So, from all these things, I'll just give you a general overview that translation is not just a linguistic activity. It is not a transfer of meanings from one language into another. Instead, it is a cultural, political, activity which is shaping linguistic identities and power. So whenever you come across a translation in future, do not think about it as an innocent activity, or a political activity. It is very, very political in nature, and it has a lot of cultural weight and tones, and it actively shapes and construct linguistic identities and power. So with this, I'll wind up the presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your enlightening keynote address. Your reflections on the South Indian region have helped us uh, look beyond surface narratives and understand the depth of its cultural, linguistic, and literary identities. The way you connected translation, analysis has added rich layers to today's discussion and opened new perspectives for us to engage with. Thank you so much. Before we conclude, we now open the floor for an interactive session. This is an opportunity for the audience to engage with Dr. Nivea Thomas K, ask questions, and share reflections on the keynote address. We encourage you all to participate and make this exchange a fruitful dialogue.
Yes, Srilata madam or Joshua sir or any of the students, like if you have any observation to make, you are welcome to do so. Or any clarification the students can make, it's open.
Yes, Divya, thank you for that. Really, I mean, thank for giving the students an exposure to that, to translation studies as per se. We have dealt with translation in little bits, and students also have translation studies in their on their syllabus. I think even at the BA level, I don't know. It was there until a few years back. I don't know if it is there on their syllabus now. BA itself.
Madam, yeah, we do have translation studies at PG level, and they also have a project actually in the final semester. So where they have to select a prose piece or a short story basically in Tamil and then try to translate it into English. So a practical
UG
assignment is
also we
given
have
to them.
Umbrella.
We used
UG
to
also.
have that.
I also
Yes.
wanted to ask you where you've been in Hyderabad. I think you studied there. You've, I mean, of course, you're a Keralite and you also know Kannada, right? So, how much of translation are you able to? I mean, not as an academic activity, have you been able to see and I mean, view, and are you able to comment on the translations that are going on now? Perhaps other than your own language.
See, one thing is, I should tell this honestly, even though I have been in Hyderabad, I have not learned Telugu because of this multicultural and multilingual communities. We always used English as a link language to community, as to communicate. So in that sense, I should acknowledge that, it is also mm, limitation from my part not to learn a new language. But in terms of whether I can comment on the translation activities, when it comes to different languages, whether it is Kannada, Telugu, or Tamil, I cannot read or write these languages. So, in that way, I cannot comment literary translations. But when it comes to adaptations, so for example, movies, now this Manichiratari is remade into Chandramukhi. So, when it comes to other phenomenon, I think I can look at it from multiple perspectives, like adaptation studies and the politics of translation, and what are the agents of translation, or what is the purpose that is playing a crucial role in translation, what is the determining factor or deciding factor in a translation. So I think translation is not just limited to literary text. There are other engagements as well as cultural engagements. So I think I can comment on cultural engagements, but when it comes to linguistic engagements, I should admit that I won't be able to comment on it.
Our students are, I think, they are more exposed to the film versions of things, and what they see below, of course, they cannot follow another, I mean, another language directly. They choose the dubbing, right? And on all the translations, the subtitles. Most of the time, I mean, translations are not really up to the mark in the dub. Uh,
Exactly.
Yes. So
Yes.
as when we know the language, we fail to look at that. But if you closely watch, especially when watch North Indian movies, Bengali and others, then I really doubt whether we are getting the right kind
Mm.
of translation. So, and machine translation, of course, is a big No, I don't know whether we can really do by machine translations at all. Sometimes they're just off the mark. So, I mean, educating the students on educating the viewer or the reader on the this kind of faults in translation, I think is all should also be one of the engagements of translation studies. They have to be prepared for this. Otherwise, they would take that as the literal truth. Many times, as you said, what kind of political have a right results from wrong translations. But there was a time, of course, in the past when we never bothered. We read all our Russian novels and all other novels in the English translation without even caring to think for a second whether that was right or wrong. Of course, only after, I mean, many long years, we realized that what we read in English itself translated to us through our languages may not be the right words or right. So when you mentioned that certain words are retained in I think I still remember what one professor told me. Keep those words in your own mother tongue. I mean, in the original, because let the others learn our language, just as we have learnt German or French or Latin.
Hmm.
Just keep these there and let them learn, because these only then we can be true to the, I mean, translated text.
That is true. I think we should not underestimate our readers also.
Yes.
Readers are also capable of, researching and understanding and analyzing the terms. So that's true.
Thank you for that enlightening, I mean, short introduction to the subject. You could also, I think, mention a few readers in translation, which our students, other than just you mentioned just few, one or two, I think.
Ha ha.
So a few more, you can introduce them, those few of more of those from the southern languages, which our students can read.
Okay, okay. So there is one text. I'll put it in the message box.
May I?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so first thing first, thank you for that very enlightening presentation, I must say, simply because, like you said, knowing two languages doesn't really make someone a translator. I remember when I did my postgraduate diploma in literary translation from Ahmedabad University, one of my mentors, Tejaswini Niranjana, started off her very first class by saying, if you are here thinking that you know more than one language and you can make yourself a translator, I think you are mistaken. And I think there are so many other important facets that one needs to consider. I can only give my own example of how I learned, not necessarily from peers, but also from students. I would always say that translation is not an exercise that an individual can do, it is a collective exercise. I had the opportunity to translate one of the short stories by the revered Tamil writer Perumal Murugan. And after completing the translation, when I approached him, that's when he told me that the story has already been translated and it's been published as a volume. But I was not really sure that I must actually verify the already existing translation. And my mentor at that point in time was Sri Kalyan Raman. So he had read through the whole translation and he told me that it has come out well. Until the point where one of my friends who works in Banaras Hindu University, he asked me if there is a possibility that I would give my manuscript, which is unpublished, an already published version that is available in the anthology. And to my utter dismay, I found that students who are not necessarily primarily Tamil speakers in Banaras Hindu University, having engaged extensively in this particular, short stories or translations of these two, I mean, this short story. And they came up with a 32-page document.
Oh.
And I must also be, humble enough to admit that because of that 32-page document, I was able to sort of make a lot of changes to the existing manuscript. I'll just give you one example. You touched upon the word vad or vada.
Huh.
There are, I mean, and I would also like to Roger what Srilata ma'am has said. It is essential that the Western readers and readers across the globe should also know some of the important cultural metaphors from our own language. One being, I remember having taught this Japanese short story, and there's this one word called sake, S-A-K-E, which is nothing but an equivalence of the Indian drink feni that we get in Goa and other such. It's a rice made liquor drink. So there are so many such words that you can actually see, which are not necessarily translated, rather they are put in the original. So some of the words that I deliberately mentioned in the original, I'll just give you one example. The Tamil word that Perumal Murugan uses to explain the peasant in his story is Kudiyanavan. It is so unfortunate that the translator who translated the story originally, very casually translated the word as a caste Hindu, which is absolutely a misfit in that particular context. The actual word for Kudiyanavan is a peasant or a farmer. So these are things that I was able to understand. So I think it's essential for a translator to be very careful when they attempt to translate. And there are so many such things that one can go on and on. For example, it was a conscious effort on my part to retain words like tatan and party, just as it is, rather than translating it as grandfather and grandmother. So there were several such things that I think you need to, as a translator, negotiate. The second thing I think, if you could take us through, is how does one approach a writer? Now, I spoke to Dr. Revati, the spouse of the late Dr. K. Gunasekaran from Pondicherry yesterday, for 1 full hour, and she was absolutely flabbergasted by the fact that some of the works of K. Gunasekaran is translated, but they don't necessarily get the permission. So I think if you could let everybody know why it's important for copyright going forward, because translation is a very important exercise. Thank you.
Okay, I think I can take one example from this text that I mentioned here, Aitihimala. So, because I myself went to the field and collected the oral versions of a particular legend, and in the oral versions, there is a character referred to as Pishaj. I think even the Tamil speakers are also familiar with the notion of Pishaj. Are you? I assume you are.
Pisasu, pisasu.
For you, it is Pisas. Yeah. So we say Pishaj. So when this writer, Kottarathil Shankuni, transcribed these oral versions into a written text, what happened was this Pishaj was translated as Malayarian. Now, Malayarian is the member of a tribal community called Malay area community. So this Pishaji, which is an abstract identity, became a very specific identity called Malay area. Now this is this example demonstrate how political or how the caste prejudices of a particular time period impacts the process of translation. So here I think it unravels the politics of translation, or you can also talk about the ethics of translation. So this is one example where Pishaji is translated into the member of a tribal community. And when you look at the kind of implications it had, if you look at the theater version of this legend, if you look at the TV serial version of this legend, movie version of this legend, and now there is an upcoming 3D version of this legend. In all these versions, this kind of representation, misrepresentation is retained. So this identity of Malayan is getting reinforced through these translations and adaptations. So I think, as Dr. Joshua was mentioning, it is very, very important to have these kinds of understandings, professional rights or copyrights, because certain terms undergo. We think that this is just a casual change, but no, it has heavy implications. So I think this example, uh, explains it a lot.
Thank you.
Oh, the legend is the legend of Kadamatthathu Kathanar. The legend of Kadamatthathu Kathanar. Maybe I can put it in the message.
Srilata ma'am actually follows Malayalam, so
Oh, okay.
I am a Malayali. I read Malayalam. I wanted to know who has translated that
Okay.
this book.
So
I
this,
Mala.
as we mentioned, this is transcription. So this is done by Kottatil Shankuni, and Kottatil Shankuni is an upper caste writer.
I have read the Malayalam version. Okay, I have also. I mean, some stories in the Malayalam version. I have Mala. So,
Oh, okay, great.
so I just wanted to know who has done the translation of it into English.
This is Kottatil Shankuni who did the compilation and transcription of these legends.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, I have one more question, if I may.
Yes, yes, sure.
Considering that you teach Dalit studies and translation studies in Christ,
Mm.
how do you actually engage, help the students identify what goes into a translation process? For example, what are those nuances that are taught? Do you actually ask them to translate, come, and then discuss? Could you please take us through that?
Uh, so one thing is an advantage in Christ, because in Christ students come from multiple linguistic and cultural backgrounds. So I always tell them before I begin the translation studies class that you guys are actually lucky. You should make use of this platform, because you can come and talk about terms, terminologies from your own languages and educate and enrich others. So this is an opportunity or a platform for you for that kind of multilingual or multicultural engagement. And at the same time, another thing is a disadvantage, because uh, this is a private university, and mm, most of the students come from privileged backgrounds. So when I teach Dalit text, especially the text in translation and all, one thing is these kinds of experiences are not relatable to them. So I used to wonder that when it comes to gender, any kind of gender issues, they can talk for hours and hours about gender issues and concerns. But the moment it comes to caste issues, they become very silent. So they do not want to engage with it. They do not want to address any of this. So some of the students even make their positionalities very prominent in the answer sheets also. I am from this background, but I'm writing this answer in this way. So teaching those kinds of students is a challenge, but at the same time I feel that it should be definitely offered to them, because they should understand these kinds of regional contexts, the issues and concerns that the community are going through or engaging. So these, what are these kinds of cultural experiences, caste experiences? I think educating them is also very important. So in that way, I think, uh, even though students coming from a privileged background is a disadvantage, we also get a platform to educate them. So I think when I teach translation studies and Dalit studies, I I touch upon both these points, aspects that I just mentioned.
Yes, I think Shanmuga Priya madam wants to, she has raised her hand. She wants to make some observation or clarification. Shanmuga Priya, you can ask a question or make any comments. Shanmuga Priya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
Uh, I just wanted to know if sometimes when you read a translated text, I have a feeling that the beauty of the original language, the spirit is lost, or the beauty of the original language is lost. What is your comment on that?
So one thing is that if you look at the history of translation studies and research papers or research engagements, most of the people have been talking about what is lost in translation, as if something is lost in the process of translation. But I think the recent approaches look at it from a different perspective. It is not basically a loss. Something is also gained in the process. So last year we conducted this lost, and we just put a dash strike through gain in translation. So I think the differences that you come across can also be viewed as a gain in translation. And comparing two texts, whenever we compare two texts, we always look down upon the translated text and say that this did not do justice to the original text. But I think we should understand the fact that translation itself is a transformative act. It is not a mere reproduction of an original text. Definitely the language undergoes a change, the cultural aspects undergoes a change, a lot of the political connotations, everything undergoes a change. So we have to understand that it is a transformative act. So in that sense, we should also look at it as an independent text. If it is a derived text from a particular text, we should also look at it as an independent text. So I think rather than comparing two texts, it would be useful or more productive to look at what are the trajectories taken by this particular notion or a word. When you look at certain caste or certain ethnicity related terms or gender specific terms and mistranslating it is definitely a problem. It definitely touches upon the issues of ethics of translation. But I'm talking about the usual things, like for example, summer is a season. When summer is translated into a different season, because summer means an extreme climate or a harsh climate for us, but when it comes to the western context, they're always looking forward to summer season. So these kinds of changes happen within or when a text or an idea moves across context. So rather than looking at whether this text has done justice to the original text, you can also look at the trajectories, the pathways which a word goes through to reach the other text.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would like to add to, I mean, a little to that, saying that I recently read, sometime back, maybe a year ago, I read Manoj Karur's book, Nilam Poothu Malarna Naal. And that won the, I think 2 years back, it won, 1 year back, it won the Sahitya Academy's Translation Award. It was translated into English. So when somebody mentioned that only, I never knew Manoj Karur at all. It was a very academic, a book based on academic activity. Actually, he went back to the Tamil Sangam. He was writing entirely about the Sangam age, and he used unsanskritized Malayalam entirely. So when I read the Malayalam text, I found it very easy because I am in a Tamil milieu and I'm able to, since I know Tamil, for me it was very, very easy. And I even translated two or three chapters of that just to see, to give myself an exercise in translation. Then after I finished that, I just thought, why don't since Jayashree has done it, Jayashree had to relearn Malayalam before she read the text and translated. She's a Malayali who lived in Tirunamale or some other place. So she had to learn to read Malayalam properly. And then, though she knew Malayalam, and then translate the text. She got the translation award. It's true. It was perfect. I mean, the Tamil and the Malayalam, it just read so well. And I mean, 2 months late after I started translating, suddenly got an idea. I said, such a famous book, somebody should have translated it by now. And you won't believe it. The month before that, the book has come out in English. The Day the Earth Blew. They are blue. So I was thinking, and when I discussed with somebody else, the earth, that word could have been different, but I found the translation quite very lyrical, very well written. The English translation also. So that this one particular translation, whether it was in Tamil, I read the Malayalam. Tamil was good, and English was also good. In English translation, anybody in the world could read and follow Sangam age, and the life of people in Sangam age. That's a very good exercise in translation. I wanted to tell you. So far, I was not very sure. Even when I started reading Red Samadhi, I tried a little bit of English, Hindi, and I read the English one with a little bit of Hindi. I don't know whether I know Hindi that well. Only as an academic exercise, only after BA I studied Hindi, whereas and Tamil I learnt, and I have learned to use it. So many years I've been living. I found that this book, I'm particularly interested in translation. This book was Manoj Kuru's The Day the Anilamputhu Malarna Naal. It's a very good example of a translation well executed. So that's for Shanpriya. You can start reading that and see.
Yes, madam. I would like to make an observation here. It was a very good presentation. We could learn a lot of things regarding the aspects involved in translation. We do have a paper for students where they get to know about the problems of translation and how they should keep to the original, try to keep to the original. But despite all the difficulties of translators, translations play a very important role in bringing cultures together. But for the translations, we would not have known much about the Bible, or the Itihasas of Ramayana and Mahabharata would not have been known to the entire world. Tolstoy would not have been known to us, but for the English translations. And there is also a possibility, as you say, that some of these words and phrases which are used in Bible translations. I used to teach history of English language, where Bible translations have contributed a lot to certain words and phrases which are used in everyday language. So that way, we learn quite a lot of things through translations. They play a very indispensable part of literature by themselves. As you say, they are both dependent and independent. Sometimes they may look like original works also. So, like when it comes to Jim's 300 Ramayanas, I think he has titled the book that way. There are 300 Ramayanas, more than 300 Ramayanas. I mean, meaning to say that there are so many versions of Ramayana, so many translations which are available. So, like each translator, be it Telugu or Kannada or Tamil or Kambaramayana or whatever, they have a totally different kind of a perspective when it comes to certain episodes in Ramayana. I have worked on Ramayana actually for my PhD thesis, and I also presented a paper at Christ University during one of the webinars, I think during the time of COVID. So, like, so we cannot deny the role, important role played by these translations. They do bring cultures, very, close to each other, and then we get to know about other cultures mainly through translations. It may not be possible for anybody to learn as many languages as possible. So translations bridge that gap actually. So with that observation, I would like to really thank you, madam, for having engaged us so thoroughly. Even though we have had only one keynote speaker, we had a very fruitful discussion with a lot of observations and interactions, especially from Joshua sir and Srilata madam. We were able to have a very fruitful discussion today. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr.
There
Nivea
is a
Thomas.
question in the chat box for you, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Last one.
Are there any notable of eco literature from South India that you recommend? I think right now I'm not able to recall, but if I recall, like are there like presentations after this?
No, ma'am,
No,
no, no.
Oh, okay, okay. Then I think I can email it. Right now I'm not
there
able
are
to
no
recall.
presentations. We have only one. Okay.
Oh. And thank you for providing this opportunity because this is 7-1, no, the time. Usually I'll be engaged in cooking or some other activities, so that way it's very refreshing for me because this is a research engagement and I have been doing a lot of admin work at office. So this kind of engagement is very refreshing and I really appreciate in tandem research club and Queen Mary's College for undertaking these kinds of initiatives. Once again, thanks to Joshua sir also for recommending my name. Thank you so much.
Preeti, shall we wind up the session?
Priti has
Wrap
joined.
it up today?
Yes, we can wind up. Nice listening to you, Dr. Nivea, and I'm sure our students benefited a lot. Um, I just wanted to share one experience that we had at QMC. See, because someone raised this thing about Shanmuga Priya, about the original and the translated one. So I'm not good at Tamil. I should admit a very heavily colonized person. So about taking away something lost in translation, we had this. We performed Kannagi. Usually Kannagi, is in Tamil. Joshua sir will be able to, connect on this. We presented Kannagi's defense in English. It is usually presented in Tamil. She's her throwing the anklet and all that, but we presented it for an American guest. And so the why I'm sharing this is it made it we were able to connect our culture with a person who is and we were able to take this the script for this Kanaki's defense we got from the movie Pumpuhar. So that scene, an old movie Pumpuhar, and the subtitles came in English. So we took that and we performed, and then a few friends of mine who knew the original, they tweaked it here and there in the language to relate it more to the original. And but it was a splendid performance and well received by the kind of audience we had that day. So that is one thing I wanted to share. And then also about this Ngugi wa Thiong'o's, point of view that there's appropriation. He said no, that he'd stop writing in English and he would continue writing in his mother tongue because he felt that there was in that book decolonizing the mind. So I'm saying all this to just emphasize that it's very complex. Um, there's no one size fits all, and there's no checklist uh, because students are on this call. So, like Joshua was saying, that he translated a story of Perumal Murugan. Someone else had also translated. So there's always it's a fluid space, it's a free space where people can express themselves, and
judging, this idea of judging what's a good translation, what is not a good translation, what is so whether to whether translation would say amla for gooseberry, or amla, use the word amla or gooseberry, or use the use the word nellikai if it's a Tamil, right? And then I remember when we earlier would have gruel porridge, and then later they had kanji. For kanji, it would be gruel or porridge. So it is a field that's evolving. It's a field that's evolving, and you can't prescribe a set of do's and don'ts. It goes with the culture that you're in at that time. So probably when the Britishers were around, they would have translated kanji as gruel. And now when we think we can gloss and provide, the equivalent for kanji in the glossary. And then there's also a point of view which says you don't gloss. Why should you serve everything up on a platter for the reader? So, and of course now with Google and AI, they can check out everything. So I just wanted to make these observations, which of course is common knowledge to experts like Joshua, Srilata, and you, just for the benefit of the students. Thank you so much. It was such an interesting presentation and delivered with so much compassion and understanding of the students. Thank you once again.
That was also an interesting example. I'll take it to my class also, the kanji one.
The Kannagi one, no? There's a movie called Poompuhar. It's a black and white one. Poompuhar. Yeah, Kannagi speech or something in Poompuhar, you get the English subtitles.
Where did you study in Nivea? In Hyderabad?
University of Hyderabad.
Okay. Shailaja was there?
Sorry?
Shailaja teach you?
No, Shailaja ma'am has not taught me.
She was there only, no?
She was there.
She's my classmate.
Oh, okay. So I joined for MPhil and PhD.
Okay.
So I only worked with a few professors.
Nice. Thank you so much.
I
Today
think
is one of
Joshua
the
sir
days where
raised his hand. Sir, I think raised his hand. Sir, would you like to
No,
make any
ma'am. I was
observations?
just applauding what Preeti ma'am had shared. I was just applauding what Preeti ma'am had shared.
Preeti, yes. I think come from the play. How did your play go?
Yeah, that also is translation.
Yes.
Badal Sarkar's, what is that? Beyond the Land of Hatamala. That's the English one. So it's Hatamala Opare or something in Bengali. And we have to say this because in the production of the play, they use Tamil words, Hindi words. So the play begins with, it's actually that, third genre of theatre. So the audience space also is used up. The fourth wall is broken. And so the performers came in from the audience shouting, chor, chor. So they used all the words, chor, chor, thief, thief, tirada, tirada.
I was just wondering how they would translate that da, da for brother, Anna, that is D.
No, they had dada, they had dada, they had the dada as it was. And as you'll find this interesting, that in that play there's a library where library is a place where you get everything. Library is like museum plus everything is loaned over there. And then for that library scene, though the play is by Badal Sarkar, they had a book by Periyar and they read from the book, which is not in Badal Sarkar's script. So because Queen Mary's is a college, is a women's college, the Dravidian, ideology is very deep rooted in our system. Now, Urmila, you were there, right?
Yes, Preeti. I did notice that. Yeah. But in the text, was it used that way? I was wondering.
No,
It's
no,
not
no.
in the original. It's not in the
Not in the
original.
original. It has been improvised.
It has been improvised. It has been
Okay.
improvised.
Okay. I like that actually. Yeah, because that way you can connect with the audience, no, better.
Mm.
So that
Madhav
was
Sakha
good.
himself
Yeah.
broke down the concept of the formal theatre. Yeah.
Mm.
So
In fact, I would like to talk about two different things now that you're all bringing in multiple perspectives. A couple of interventions, if I may. The first is in Benares Hindu University in the Tamil department. There is a research scholar who is now actually trying to bring in the number of literary works and non-literary works that are translated from one regional language to another, in at least in South India. That is another intervention that we should also be focusing on. I mean, of course, English translations are important, but at the same time, we should also think of cross translation. There's a particular word for it, but for want a word, I would use cross translation, which is one. Another important perspective, since Dr. Nivea spoke about Bible translation and how efficiently and effectively it was done, of late, a common friend of mine and Dr. Nivea and his wife, they both are actually engaged in trying to identify those words in Bible translation, the Malayalam Bible translation, and how it is actually quite derogatory and non-inclusive. And they're actually trying to bring in inclusive words, right? If I may, I mean, for example, a couple of words that I can talk from the Tamil Bible is the word kurudan and the word sapani, right? So sometimes these are words that are used to actually derogatory in a derogatory manner address people. So as a conscious effort, they are actually attempting to bring about sensitive words rather than these words that are actually used in the past. So I think these are also interventions that actually help translation progress from where we are to a different tangent altogether. Thank you.
no, but recently there's been some work with the Hebrew translations from, I mean, directly from the Hebrew. They found out so many discrepancies, I think, in the English translation, meaning wise, culturally. I think, for example, the eye of the needle, it's uh, that bit, the camel going through the eye of the needle. It refers to some I mean, structures from Egypt, that, or it is actually, it refers to the architectural structures inside the Jewish temple, which were very narrow gates. They were actually narrow gates through which a camel could not go. So it was translated, when it was translated into English, it was known as Cleopatra's Needle or something, that kind of architectural. So therefore, the eye of the needle, I always used to wonder how the camel, and why that kind of a, how could the camel go through the eye of the needle? Why, who made that kind of a statement? But much later, when all these things were one by one, so much of, I think it's a kind of a progressive activity, this, re-looking at texts and been trying to make it more and more correct. So today I understand what that means. So why they said the 11th hour, all of these things, they had some references, but we are just we just use it as a matter of fact, just like that. We use those words too, without even thinking of their meaning. So translation has other, I think the semantics bit also comes in, not just cultural other things, the semantics, I mean the meanings of the words as it was used in the past by the original translation. I think some of it should be, I mean, we cannot have factual, mistakes. That those also should be corrected. We should, translators should check on these things too before translated. The spirit of the translation, of course, is kept in the Bible till today, and therefore nobody has anything against that. But when it comes to words like this you mentioned, which are derogatory, I said, and where factual errors also arise, then that also has to be taken into account. The translator has to, I think it's a very difficult activity, translation, because when you try to go into it, each word poses a problem.
If time permits, can I just clarify a doubt here? Like this has been lingering in my mind for a very long time. Like we have two types of translation. One, the writer himself translating his own work, and another cases where somebody else translate that work. So in that case, which is better? Can we ever guarantee that if the writer like Tagore or Girish Karnad, for that matter, if they themselves translate their own works, will it be more authentic, or sometimes even they may fail? Which is better? So that doubt is always there.
I think, there are two kinds of phenomena which have happened. One is there are translations which have surpassed the original. Translations are better than the original. It has happened
Yes,
in
yes,
some regional context. At the same time, writers like O.V. Vijayan. So O.V. Vijayan is a writer who wrote Khasakinde Idihasam in Malayalam, and he translated it into English, The Legends of Khasak. So I think whatever the writer has had in mind in terms of the connotation nuances of a particular word can be brought in through the process of translation in that sense, because this O.V. Vijayan is one writer who looks for just one word. To get one word he will wait for a week. He's that kind of writer. So time is not at all a problem for him. So when that kind of writer is doing or translating his own work, I'm sure that he will always look for that apt word.
Right.
so can it be taken for granted that if the writer himself translates his work, that will be better than somebody else translating the writer's work? We just maybe we take it for granted that way. As you said, sometimes translations may be better than the original even. And somebody else translates, it may be better than the original even. That has also happened, no?
Can I answer? I mean, one.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, madam.
I was just thinking that many people don't translate their own works, right? Maybe even if they do know the language, most of the time a writer is good at his native, at his native language, but not maybe the language which he is going to translate it into. So that's why I think we have most people prefer a translator. But there one case I know is Mahashweta Devi has written a story called The Story of Jagmohan the Elephant. I got that when I was working on her, I got it from the American Center Library, the translation made by Mahashweta Devi herself. She herself translated it, and I think they read it to G.N. Devi and group. She read it, and it's a very highly, after having gone through the entire, and I used it in my thesis, only towards the end, I suddenly realized that it was a highly explosively political work. Of course, since I wasn't going into too much of politics into politics in my thesis, I very cleverly left it out. Okay, politics out of it. I just read the story of Jagmohan the elephant. I just used that for my purpose, because I was using it in an ecology concept. that I used it that way, and there it stopped. So I found out that I think that the translators are better than Mahashweta Devi's own translation in English. So sometimes maybe it is because the translator is not good at that language, right? Maybe I don't know if there are nuances and other things, and like O.V. Vijay, you can trust him because he knows what his stuff is. But others will have to depend on a translator to make their voices heard in other places.
Thank you, madam, for clarifying that.
Sorry, my laptop got switched off.
Uh, Preeti, can we wind up now?
Of course, we can.
Yes. Sai Kripa,
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
can you take
Uh,
over? Yes.
yes. Thank you so much for all the insightful discussions, and thank you, ma'am, for our keynote speaker, Dr. Nivea Thomas K, ma'am, for your patience and clarifying all the doubts. Thank you so much. On behalf of organizing team and all participants here, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to you for sharing your time, knowledge, and insights with us today. With that, we bring this keynote session to a close. We now look forward to the upcoming paper presentations that will continue to explore the theme of regions and translations in Indian writing through diverse voices and critical approaches. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.